That's what this is showing. Those irregular abrasions that aren't the same size, that's pseudostipple.
Are you talking about this area up here?
All of them. The one above it, the one below it, the three below it, and the one above it.
Right here.
Additionally to the abrasion on the back of the ear.
That we just saw.
Yes.
41 cc. What are we looking at here?
Abrasions on the right cheek. Additionally, I would classify them as pseudostipple as well.
Okay. So similar to the previous injuries we saw on near his ear in terms of a bullet going through something and then causing these types of irregular abrasions?
Yes, whatever that something is causes these irregular abrasions, and there's smaller ones down by the angle of the mandible, by the between the ear and the back of the chin.
This area right
that
here?
area, yes.
41 DD. What are we looking at here?
This is a photograph of his hand. I believe it's his right hand. It's a close-up photograph. I can't tell. I don't believe there was any injuries to his hands. I think that is blood, because we take photographs as is or from when the body's transported from the scene. They put, or a lot of times they put handbags to preserve any evidence on the hands themselves. So when we take them off, we take a photograph of the hands as they are. So I believe that's what that is.
41 EE. What are we looking at here?
That is the right hand as well, and that, I believe, is the pseudostipple that covers the back of his hand.
Okay. So in terms of all these blood marks, what's your professional opinion about what's the cause of all that?
They're punctate abrasions. They can be caused by anything: shattered glass, plastic, metal fragments, you name it.
Okay. So in terms of an actual kind of bullet wound to his hand, or either hand, did you notice any type of bullet wounds to his hand?
There's no penetrating or perforating wounds to the hand.
41 FF. These marks on the fingers, can you tell the jury what those are?
More pseudostipple.
41 GG. Which hand are we looking at now?
That is the left hand.
Okay. What, if any, notations or observations did you make in relation to this hand?
There is some pseudostipple, like we saw on the fingers, and towards the thumb on the left hand, on the back side.
Okay. And the last photo I have here, 41 HH. On that same hand, is this the pseudostipple that you're talking about?
Yes, some of which we already saw in the previous photo, yes.
Okay. Would you expect a hand that was closer to either shattering glass or plastic or whatever to have more pseudostipple than a hand that was further away?
It's likely that it would happen that way, but not necessarily. I can't say definitively that it would happen that way.
Okay. Now, doctor, in terms of your overall, we went through all the photographs of all these injuries. Is there anything that you notated that we haven't discussed about during your autopsy you noted something of significance?
No.
Right. Now, have you ever heard of something called a death grip, doctor?
Colloquially, I can figure out what you mean by that, but no, I've not specifically heard that.
What do you take that, I guess, two-word phrase to mean? If he knows, Judge.
It is, yeah, I was just going to use that word as a matter of fact. So, overruled. Go ahead.
Go ahead, doctor.
He said he'd not heard that term. Yeah, you may.
So, doctor, in terms of what you know, if anything, about the phrase death grip when it comes to your profession.
I don't specifically use that I don't use that in my practice, but I believe it means that it's the grip of, or positioning of the hand as if it was holding something when the person died.
Going to approach, Judge, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
What's already been admitted as states 28D as in dog.
All right.
Just take a look at this, doctor, real quick, and I'll put it up on the screen.
Certainly.
Which hand of this photograph is taken?
His left hand.
Based on this photograph alone, what, if anything, can you tell us about whether or not the victim in this case, Sebastien, had a gun in his hand?
I can't unless someone tells me that they found a gun in his hand. He could have been holding something or nothing at all when his hand's just in that position. Or he could have been holding a can of soda, cigarette lighter, cell phone. I have no idea.
So in terms of the positioning of his hand, is it possible that a gun was in that hand?
Certainly possible.
Is it possible nothing was in his hand?
That's also possible.
Is it possible that as he was dying, his hand just fell that way?
That's possible.
Now, in terms of rigor mortis, when someone dies, what's the earliest you've ever seen rigor mortis set in?
Depending on what they were doing beforehand, it could be minutes. Typically, we say 2 to 4 hours. It starts post-death, but usually, I mean, once you die, so rigor mortis is stiffening of the muscles, and it's because your body is running out of the energy source it needs for the muscles to contract. And you need that energy source for the muscles to contract and to relax. So whatever state you're in, when you run out of that energy source, is how your muscles are going to be. So some muscles are going to be flexed, some muscles are going to be extended. It depends on what you were doing before you died and what position you're in. So not knowing how much energy you expended before you died, you can't really tell how long it's going to take somebody to go into rigor. If you're running a marathon and then you drop dead, you may go into rigor within a few minutes when somebody gets to you, because you've expended all your energy during the marathon run and there's nothing left to supply for those muscles to do anything after you die. So when you run out of all your ATP is what it is, that's when the muscles are stuck in their position. It starts in the smallest muscles. Well, it's most notable in the smallest muscles first, but it happens in the entire body at the same time.
And once rigor mortis actually sets in, how easy is it, for example, let's say that rigor mortis set in at this point, how easy would it be to open up those fingertips?
If it's set, then it shouldn't be easy.
And so if it was easy to open these fingertips, for example, to take photographs of the inside, would it be your professional opinion that rigor mortis had not set in yet?
It could be the beginning part. It may not be fixed, which means that it's been there for at least 4 to 6 hours.
Right. So would you expect within 20 minutes that it would be of such a rigor mortis state that you would not be able to pull the hand open without using some force?
Again, I would point to the scenario, the circumstances of how the person died beforehand to know. I mean, it could be possible depending upon what the person was doing before they died. If they were just sitting doing nothing, then they weren't expending a lot of energy. So they should still have some ATP, so that means rigor mortis is not going to set in that quickly. Because, the cells themselves are not going to break down instantaneously when you die. And so that person may be going into early rigor. You could note that when you look at the appendage or the part of the body you're looking at, you can feel a little tension, but you'll be able to break it. It's not fixed.
Would you expect rigor mortis to set in quickly if it were a 3 to 4 minutes of activity, physical activity?
Again, it's a process, so there could be some, but I don't think it'd be fixed lividity at that point. I mean, fixed rigor mortis. Sorry.
And what does that mean?
That'd be difficult to break.
If there was a lot of energy expended and then we see the hand like this, that even after 3 to 4 minutes of strenuous activity, if rigor mortis would set in, it would be difficult to open up those fingertips.
I don't believe it'd be extremely difficult.
But it would take some force to be able to do.
A bit more than it would if he was doing no activity before he died. Yeah.
And in terms of his left hand, this is going to be 28A, or excuse me, take it back. This is 28A, which is his left hand.
No, I believe that's his right hand.
His right hand. So the first image we saw was his left hand, right?
Correct.
And we just talked about it. His left hand, given just the position of it, could have had a gun in it, right?
Possibly.
Could have had nothing in it.
Possibly, yes.
In terms of his right hand, is it possible that a gun was in that hand?
It's possible.
Based on the orientation as it is while he's on the kind of body bag at this point?
It's possible.
Okay. It's possible a cell phone was in that hand?
That's also possible.
Possible he was holding maybe one of the car door handles before he died?
Possible.
And in terms of this hand, again, possible there was just nothing in his hand when he was inside of that vehicle.
That also is possible.
All right. Just one moment, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
So if you can tell, doctor, how many total entrance wounds did this victim suffer?
There were 10 gunshot wounds.
Okay. And how many, I guess, exit wounds were you able to find?
Of the 10 gunshot wounds, there was 1 graze and one perforating gunshot wound path.
Say that last part again, doctor. Didn't hear.
1 graze wound and 1 perforating gunshot wound path.
Okay. And in terms of cause of death, I know you have terms in your profession. What's the official cause of death that you determined in this case?
Multiple gunshot wounds.
Manner of death. What was the manner of death in this case?
Homicide.
And in your professional opinion, why is it that Sebastien died based on these wounds? What caused his death?
He was shot by another person or persons.
And what primary gunshot wound was the one that would have led to his death based on your training and experience?
The most fatal one would have been the gunshot wound to the right side of the back that went through the right thoracic cavity, right lung, the liver, the right kidney, and thoracic vertebrae.
Then just for admission purposes, this is 40A. What are we looking at here?
It's a diagram that depicts the measurements I took for the wounds that I described in my report.
So this is just kind of a memorial of everything we just talked about in terms of all the injuries and where they are located on his body.
Yes.
And then for B, what are we looking at here?
The right side of his body with the wounds on that side of the body.
And then just for clarification, did you notice any type of entry wounds on the left side of his body?
No.
All right. Last question. If you had to summarize, would you say that all of the gunshot wounds that you observed during the course of your autopsy were from either back to front or they were going in horizontally, I guess on that even plane?
If I may refer.
Yes.
I'd say yes.
Okay. And then in terms of a right to left or a left to right trajectory, did all those wounds have a right to left? Did some of them have left to right? What would you say at the conclusion of your autopsy?
All were going right to left to some degree.
So that would mean that any of the bullets that entered into his body, based on your review and your training and experience, would have come somewhere to his right.
Based upon my autopsy with the body and its opposition, yes.
All right, there's no further questions. Permission to get these photographs. I don't know if the defense counsel
Yep,
needs
well,
them.
go ahead and retrieve them now. All right, thank you very much for the direct exam. Who's going to do cross? All right, Mr. Shiner?
I proceed, Judge.
Yes, sir, please do.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon.
You've done 2,500 autopsies approximately?
More than that, yes.
At least 2,500.
Yes.
15 years, 5 in Philadelphia, 5, roughly 4 or 5 here, 5 in Broward, a year in Miami, right?
Yes.
All right. So have you done cases where a police officer has killed a decedent?
Yes.
All right. And when you do those, is that also, whether it's justified or not justified, do you still term that a homicide?
Our determinations of manner, we have to pick from 5, and it's for statistical purposes and vital purposes only. And it basically just, our definition of homicide is death at the hand of another.
All right, so if a police officer shoots someone, pulls a gun on them, shoots first, doesn't shoot at all, just points a gun, and the officer shoots that guy or a woman and kills them, whether it's justified or not, you would still consider that a homicide.
That's correct.
All right, same thing in this case. You don't have any clue what happened, do you? In terms of the actual moment that this man, the decedent, got shot, do you?
Other than the information that was gathered from circumstances, no.
Okay, and some of the things you use is investigator Julio Languasco to help you out, right?
He was the investigator who went to the scene, yes.
All right, and he determined that rigor mortis was very light in this case, right?
I believe that's what his report says.
Okay, and very light meaning it was starting to set in, and right?
Yes.
But you could still move the fingers?
I believe that's what he, if you interpret that to be that, yes.
Well, you interpret it that way, don't you?
Based upon his description, it wasn't set, so it's not fixed rigor mortis.
Okay, it was just starting to.
Yes.
And you saw the photographs he took for you, didn't you? The scene photographs where he was able to manipulate the fingers?
To show the palms, yes.
All right, if somebody wanted to take a gun out of the decedent's hand before the police arrived, it wouldn't be that hard to do, would it, sir?
I don't believe it would.
You don't have to break the fingers. It's not frozen in there. It's light rigor mortis, right?
That's correct.
You didn't see any soda cans in the car, did you? The investigator took pictures, and you didn't see any, did you?
From the photographs I reviewed, I did not see them, no. I didn't see anything.
Okay, and you didn't see... Well, I don't remember what your words were. You said it could be a soda can. What else did you say? It could be a lighter?
Lighter, cell phone, I don't know.
Any lighters in the car?
From the limited photographs that I have, no, I did not.
Okay, and the cell phone, did you see any cell phones?
From the photographs, no, I did not. From the photographs I seen.
What? You're aware that the decedent had 2 keys in his pocket, right? Upon removal by your investigator and the crime scene personnel?
I'd have to refer to see if that was in the report.
You want to look? It's in his right front pocket.
Sure.
Thank you. May I approach the witness, Judge?
You may.
Let me show you this, maybe save a little bit of time. States number 27. I don't know if that would help you. 2 keys that were in Seaton's pocket.
Okay.
Does that help you a little bit?
In terms of, I'm sorry, what's your question?
That your investigator, Mr. Longuasco, found 2 keys in the right pocket of the decedent upon removing him from the vehicle.
Yes, he says we took photographs of all personal property and then proceeded to remove the clothing. So, he said, but he was referring to what he was wearing. He didn't specifically say what he removed from his pockets.
Well, those photographs, do you remember reviewing the photographs before you came out today from Investigator Longuasco, removing 2 keys from the pocket of the decedent?
I reviewed the photographs, but I didn't focus specifically on the property that was removed from the clothing.
Okay. Did anyone from law enforcement ever come to your office and show you a ring video or photographs, not this big probably, but of anything like this in this case?
It's upside down.
Pardon me.
No, I don't recall that.
Okay. And there's been testimony that this is the decedent standing there, the guy near the white sweatshirt. No one showed you this previous to today, right?
No, I don't remember seeing that.
Okay. You don't know what's in his right front pocket, do you?
I have no idea what that is.
Does law enforcement sometimes confer with you and bring you evidence to say, hey, what do you think of this doc? Does it match this scene? Does it not match this? Do they ever do that?
They may, at times, depending on the case.
So they do, right? It's not unusual that they've done that.
No, it's not.
But no one did it in this case.
No. I recall.
The picture that I just showed you, defense exhibit number 5. Do you agree this is not consistent with having those 2 car keys in his pocket, the decedent?
Sustained.
I can see there's something in his pocket. I have no idea what is in his pocket from that photograph.
And nobody asked you to recreate it, right?
No, that's outside the scope of what I do.
Well, if you were told, hypothetically, that he may have had a firearm that night, pointing it out the window, two people, the decedent, would that be possible evidence for you to consider if his hand possibly had a firearm upon his death, before his death?
I don't know how that's relevant to my determination of cause and manner of death.
Don't you determine, your investigator goes out there and asks, hey, what happened? Police tell them what they found, right?
Correct.
But don't you determine the circumstances also, as well as the manner of death?
No, we record the circumstances as were given to them by the investigating officers, but we, in the determined cause and manner of death, whether he had a gun or not is not relevant.
Of how he died, right?
And for me determining cause and manner of death, it's not relevant.
You asked a question by the prosecutor a few minutes ago, and he asked you that it was consistent with many other objects. Wouldn't you want to know what object was really in his hand before you can answer that question, if anything?
As I said, it could be any object or no object at all.
Okay, but if you were told by the police that this man had a gun in his hand, I know you weren't, but if you were, would you consider that, or you wouldn't even pay attention to it?
As I said earlier, it's possible.
Okay. Well, what if they told you that?
Then it would be the gun. I would presume it's the gun, but again, that's not relevant to my determination of cause and manner of death.
You can't say it's a gun unless you see a gun in this man's hand, right?
That's the only time I would say there was a gun in his hand.
Okay. You disagree it's consistent, the decedent's right hand with holding a firearm. Do you disagree it's consistent with that?
No, as I said it was possible.
My question is it consistent with holding a firearm prior to his death? That's my question. Not possible, consistent.
It may be.
All right, well, did you ever use a firearm?
Maybe once or twice in my life.
Did you ever, in a case, ever put a firearm or a fake firearm in your hand and then pull it out and see if your fingers are in the exact same shape as the decedent's hand in this case?
No, I've never done that.
No one asked you to do that?
No one's ever asked me to do that.
You don't have that much experience other than what you read in the literature about firearms?
And the hundreds of homicide cases I've done over the years.
Sure, but I mean personal experience in firing guns and...
No, I don't have personal experience in firing guns.
Okay. Now, if somebody's in a fist fight and kicking and lasts for 10 minutes, is that possible that it would build up some lactic acid? Or I think your word was, what was it, RSD or something?
No, I was saying that you use up your energy stores, which is ATP.
Sorry, I apologize. ATP, is that similar to lactic acid?
Lactic acid is a byproduct of you using up your energy sources.
So if I'm in a fist fight, a severe fist fight, for 10, 15 minutes, right before I get shot, and I'm using my fist and my legs, would you consider that a buildup of the, I'm sorry, I don't remember the three letters you said. What was it?
ATP, using it,
Yep.
you could potentially use a decent amount of ATP to do that.
That would possibly bring on rigor mortis quicker than a person who was just sitting in a vehicle doing absolutely nothing.
Agreed, yes.
Okay. And the other extreme you used was a marathon runner. If somebody was running a marathon and they passed away right away, they can go in full rigor mortis right away.
But I mean, they can go rigor mortis quicker than you normally would. I wouldn't say instantaneously, but within minutes, probably you could have significant rigor.
Every case is different.
Yes.
Anyone ever give you any facts in this case law enforcement give you any facts about how long, or even if there was a fist fight from the decedent?
I don't specifically recall. I may refer to the investigative report.
Sure. You want to see Investigator Linguasco's report?
I have it here.
Okay.
He mentions a scuffle, but he doesn't say specifically who was in the scuffle.
Okay, so you weren't really given any real details about what may have occurred prior to the shooting, right?
Apparently, he wasn't given specifics as to, other than the driver of the vehicle and 2 other acquaintances were visiting a residence.
I want you to read it. I just want to know if you received any if you received any information that there was a fight and how severe it was prior to the decedent getting shot.
No, those details are not here.
Okay. So you don't know.
Other than there was a scuffle, no.
Okay. Scuffle can mean a lot of things, right?
It could. It doesn't indicate who was in the scuffle.
Or how long it lasted or how severe it was.
That information was not recorded in his report.
Okay. You went to medical school. That must have been very difficult, right?
It was medical school.
A lot of work.
Yes.
A lot of money.
Cost a lot. Yes.
A lot of sacrifice.
Yes. Some.
And what I'm getting at is you get paid to be here, right?
Yes.
You get paid by the state.
By the county. Yes.
You make more than most people. I'm not going to ask you how much, but you make more than most people don't in average jobs, don't you?
I would say yes.
Okay. And do you do consulting on the side?
No, I don't.
When you talk to the prosecutors before this trial or any trial, do you charge them?
No.
Why'd you charge me $500 to talk to me for an hour?
That's the office policy. I personally did not charge you that. That's the office policy.
Well, before I was allowed to talk to you, I had to stroke you a check for $500, right? For 1 hour of your time.
As is the office policy.
Okay, so why would I have to pay, but they don't? What? How is that fair?
I don't make the rules.
But you're cold and neutral. You're not working for either side, right?
Yes, that's correct.
You don't know why the defense lawyer, me, had to pay you to talk to you, right?
As per office policy, that's what it is.
You never asked anyone why? How is that fair? That one side has to pay and the other one gets it for free?
No, just sustained. All right, move on.
Intermediary target. Does that mean that this particular car was an intermediary target before the decedent got struck?
I would say yes.
And when a bullet goes through a car, it breaks up. Like in this case, right? It could break up.
Yes, it can.
In this case, every bullet pretty much broke up that you observed. They were all fragments.
That's correct. They're all
Little
fragments.
tiny pieces, right?
Yes,
And obviously they can do a lot of damage. It's no joke, right?
correct.
All right, so when the fragments are coming in, could you tell if they're bouncing around or if they deflect and they go different directions? Is there a way of you telling if they're hitting objects in the car and bouncing off of it?
I can't say specifically no.
It can go anywhere, right?
Yes, I can only describe wound paths as they go through the decedent's body based upon my observations with the body in its own position.
Is there anything inconsistent with the man standing 5, 10, 15 feet near the car in a standing position, shooting into the car? Is there anything inconsistent with the wounds that you found on the decedent with that?
I can't tell range from those wounds because, A, there's an intermediary target,
Right?
so they wouldn't be inconsistent, no.
Because every shot or every piece of bullet fragment came from right to left, right?
Correct.
Obviously, the person who was shooting was standing on the right side.
That's correct.
How could somebody's buttocks get shot in a chair? Is it because their buttocks is exposed in that part?
I can't tell you where the person was or in space. I can tell you if they were squirming, turning to the left, to the right, while the bullets were coming in. I mean, my observations are as the body is laying flat on the table, so.
Sure. But I'm asking, like in this case, if somebody's sitting up in the anatomical sitting position when they're being shot at, have you seen that before or heard about that in cases? Sometimes people sit up, they don't duck.
Yeah, well, yes.
And if somebody sees a bullet or a gun coming at them, sometimes people duck, right?
They may, yes.
All right, so would the decedent's right buttocks, where the bullet entrance wound went in that we saw in the picture, be exposed?
If they were sitting straight up in the chair,
Yes, sir.
not particularly, but again, as I said, it went through intermediate targets. I don't know how it deflected. It could have gone through the door and then deflected into the buttock from the seat, or the body positioning of the person. I don't know. Even though he was seatbelted, he could have been turned slightly to the right.
Right.
I don't know.
And you don't know if he was seatbelted either, do you?
I believe in Investigator Longwatzko's report, he was seatbelted
Okay.
before he was removed from the car.
And this man had a gun pointed with his right hand, hypothetically. Would that possibly account for the wound on his shoulder and all the stippling on his hands? His hand was straight out while the shots were coming in?
Straight out through what? The open
Windshield.
door or the windshield?
Windshield, straight ahead. He's pointing the gun, hypothetically, straight forward.
You mean the side glass?
Nope, the windshield.
The windshield itself.
I mean, he's the front passenger. I'm asking if his hand's straight up. Wouldn't that be consistent with then getting shot in the shoulder area and the stippling that's on the hand? Because his hand's exposed.
I don't recall any defects in the front windshield.
I didn't ask if there was defects. I just said if his hand is straight out, hypothetically his hand is straight through the windshield. We know the shots came from right to left. We just talked about that.
Correct.
So if his hand is up, would that likely cause more of those marks we saw that you said stippling on the outside of his palm?
Likely.
Okay. His hand was, if he was ducking on the ground, the stippling on the palm would probably not be there, right?
It may not. I mean, there were defects in the door and the actual side glass, so.
All right. Well, the left hand, assuming that was not holding a gun, had way less stippling marks than the right hand, didn't it?
Correct.
And the man also had some wounds up on the shoulder area and the arm area, right? The upper arm.
Yes, correct.
Would the wounds on the shoulder and the right arm and the right shoulder be inconsistent with his arm being raised at the moment he's being shot?
No, they wouldn't be inconsistent.
I'm clear, there was no whole bullets found, like full-size bullets.
No, everything was a fragment.
And you have no idea what the shooter in this case was seeing. There's no way you could tell us what he was seeing when he started shooting, right?
No clue.
And you have no evidence at all that the shots came directly from behind the decedent, did you? Do you?
I don't recall any defects in the back right passenger or the back windshield. I can't recall those.
You said they're all right to left, the wounds, right?
Yes, and from reviewing the scene photographs, the defects are on the right front passenger door.
No, I'm talking on the body of the decedent. They're all right to left, every single wound, right?
Yes.
So you would agree that, I don't want to turn my back, but let me just do that quickly. You didn't see any straight bullets that came directly into the decedent's back, like my back's turned to you. There's no bullets. Where you're sitting, hypothetically, you didn't see a bullet go straight into this decedent's back, correct?
I mean, there are defects in his back. They're going from right to left, but I don't have.
I'm sorry, apologize.
So, I don't understand your question. You're asking.
You have no evidence whatsoever that the shooter was standing directly behind the decedent at any time when he was shooting at him and shot him.
Yeah, I can't say. I mean, the end of the gun was at some point for those back wounds behind him, but I don't know because in space everything's moving. I don't believe that he stood there and the car was sitting in one spot while this was going on.
Of course, but you have no evidence that the shooter was directly behind the decedent and kept shooting into his back. The bullets are inconsistent with that, right? Or the fragments.
They're coming from the right to left and they're going from back to front. So at some point, And the barrel of the gun was at this position,
Okay,
in reference to where the decedent was.
so it would be slightly behind him.
Slightly behind him.
Walking directly behind him. That's what I'm asking you, the way I just turned from you.
No, there's no indication of that. There's no wound path that depicts that.
Okay. There's no way to match up the fragments to the actual holes in the door, is there?
No.
Holes in the window?
No.
Nobody can do that, as far as you know, right?
As far as I know, no.
You guys, meaning the medical examiners, you take hair standards, DNA standards, fingernail clippings, right and left hand, right?
Yes.
Why do you do that?
Standard protocol.
Well, you take fingernail clippings to see if possibly it may be important to see if someone's DNA is underneath the decedent's fingers or fingernails.
It's part of the standard processing of a homicide case. At the
Is
Palm
that
Beach
why it's
County.
done? I mean, it's not done for fun. I mean, there's got to be a real reason. What's the reason for it? The nail clippings.
Nail clippings, potentially, that's what could be discovered.
Transfer evidence from another human being.
Yes.
You don't decide if it gets tested. You just actually clip it, right? Well, not you. Maybe your assistant or you. Somebody clips it, right?
Correct.
You're not the one who determines, hey, I want to match this up to see if this guy was in a physical altercation.
No.
That's the law enforcement's job.
Yes, it is.
Did you ever check the decedent's clothes for blood?
Clothes did not come into the office.
It goes directly to the sheriff.
They were collected at the scene.
Okay. You have no role in searching or checking clothes at all.
No, not in this case.
Some cases, the police bring the clothes to you to see if there's stippling on there or the gun is consistent with the damage to the hole in the shirt or pants.
At times, but the majority of cases, clothing is taken by crime scene
Some-
if there's a scene.
Sometimes they'll bring it back to you for your opinion, right?
If there's a question, yes.
Of course. When the police come to talk to you, there's no bill for them, is there?
No.
Remember seeing on the decedent's right hand, do you remember seeing a mark on his finger? Like an abrasion?
I don't know if I could describe an abrasion on his finger. Let me just refer. I did not describe him.
I'm sorry?
I did not describe him.
So can you tell me if there was a wound or abrasion on his hand?
Besides the pseudo-stipple that was described, no, I cannot.
Okay. Let me show you. It's been entered as defense exhibit number 19. You see any wounds on or any abrasions on the finger on this photograph?
No, I do not.
And I'm talking about the index finger, the one that's pointing out the furthest.
I don't know that I can call it an abrasion. I have no idea.
What do you call that?
I don't really see anything other than a crinkled finger.
Okay. And do you see anything on the palm in this area under the thumb? Do you see any indentations or any marks that mean anything to you?
It potentially looks like lividity,
What's that?
pooling of the blood in that area.
How about a pressure mark? Would you disagree that's possibly a pressure mark from holding something prior to death?
Cause blanching, and lividity fills in the spaces in between. So there wouldn't be lividity if it's a pressure mark.
Possible this is a pressure mark on the palm?
It's an indication of lividity. I can't say anything more than that.
So you agree or disagree that it's possibly a pressure mark?
I wouldn't describe it as a pressure mark. It looks like lividity to me.
describe that in your report that there was lividity in the palm?
No, I generalize lividity in general areas of the body. However, I don't specifically say each individual area I see lividity and diagram it in a case like this.
The decedent in this case also had tested positive for cannabinoids or THC.
He tested positive for a metabolite of cannabinoids in his urine.
What's that? What's cannabinoids?
Marijuana?
Okay, so you can't tell what effect, if any, it may have had on him.
There was no marijuana present in his blood. This was a metabolite in his urine.
All right, how long does that stay in your urine?
Days.
Tell when the guy last used marijuana?
No, it could be days or weeks.
Maybe hours or sooner?
No, because hours or sooner would present with actual THC and or earlier metabolites in the blood, which was not present.
That had nothing to do with this case.
No, it did not.
You asked a question about a death grip, and you said that you don't use that term, and you only, it's a colloquial, how you say that word?
Colloquial.
Thank you. What's colloquial? What does that mean?
Lay common phrasing.
Right? During your training for a medical examiner, I know you were never in a war, right? I mean, you never did autopsies on soldiers, did you?
I have not, no.
Have you ever read any articles on that or literature about soldiers maybe holding a firearm or have what's called a death grip upon their death while they're on the battlefield?
I specifically have not, no.
Do you know where the term death grip comes from?
No, as I said.
Okay. You don't use the term death grip. Do you have another term for it?
For what?
Well, a colloquial term, death grip. Do you have another word that you use?
I would just be descriptive of the rigor mortis I see.
All right. So you've never testified in a case about a possible person holding a weapon before their death or during their death?
I can't specifically recall an instance of that.
Do you have any way, from your autopsy and your experience, do you have any way of showing the position the decedent was in when he was shot? Do you actually know?
No.
And you have no way of... How about suicides? You must get tons of suicides in Palm Beach County.
Yes, there are quite a few.
You ever get them where the decedent has a gun in their hand? Or by the time they come to you, it's taken out by law enforcement probably, right?
Correct.
Right. Well, the scene photos from your investigators, do you ever see photographs of the decedents holding guns?
At times, yes.
All right. And when the guns are removed by the law enforcement, I know you're generally not there, right?
That's correct.
Does your investigators ever take pictures of the decedent's hand after the gun is removed?
Yes, they do.
And do you sometimes see people in rigor mortis, and see them holding the fingers remain on the hand remains in the same position as it looks like it was before the gun was removed?
I can't specifically call a specific instance, but I'm certain that I've seen the hand before and after the gun was removed.
Usually not an issue in a suicide because it's not usually being challenged in court, right?
At times they want to see other things on the hand to see whether or not they shot the gun.
Okay.
That's the reason for the photographs,
What other
usually.
things in the hand? What do you mean?
With the revolver, any kind of cylinder gap or backsplash or anything like that from
Backsplash. What's that?
not backsplash, spatter.
Okay. How would that show if someone had a gun in their hand?
There'd be void points where the gun was sitting, and then around it would be the spatter,
Okay, in the outside of the palm of the hand.
or palm or on the back of the hand, or in the cupping portion between the index and palm and thumb.
The shooter in this case, you have no way of knowing if he was acting in self-defense or not, do you, sir?
I do not.
All right, thank you, Judge. I attend to the witness.
All right. Any redirect? All right, very briefly.
Doctor, does the state of Florida pay you more money based on your testimony here today?
No,
We pay you less money based on your testimony here today.
God, I hope not.
Who does pay your paycheck, I guess?
County of Broward, Palm Beach County.
Okay.
Sorry.
And for that deposition, did you demand $500 from defense lawyers for being there?
I did not know.
Who did?
The office.
Did you make that policy?
No, I did not.
All right. Now, in terms of the pictures, the deceased's right hand, the stippling or pseudo stippling that you saw, or stippling on his right hand, talked a lot about what would be consistent, what wouldn't be consistent. Would that stippling on his hand also be consistent with, as bullets are flying in through a window, him putting his hand up to shield himself?
Yes.
All right. Just one moment, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
All right. Doctor, thank you very much. Watch your step getting down. Stay safe. All right, you have another CSI, right? Yes, sir. How long do you anticipate on direct examination?
5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, good. Let's do it. Folks, while that witness is being made available, you want to take a restroom break before he or she gets on the stand? All right, then yes? Oh, I see yes. Okay. Then let's take a 10-minute restroom break. Be back in at 4:45, and then I'll fill you in on what we're doing tomorrow, okay? 4:45.
You said they're back at 4:45?
Yes, please.
All right, no pads face down or numbers up. We know you guys all can't use the restroom in 10 minutes. If it takes longer, that's fine. We know the rules. All right, quarters in brief recess.
session. Okay, that's fine.
Yes, there's a. That's what I thought. Okay, I need to put something on the record, but I don't know if you want me to do it. I guess I'll do it.
Well, you got to wait for the juries here. Yep.
No, this is already in. I'm gonna correct it. That's what I was talking about. There was already a stack of photos. But while we're waiting, do we have any updates about tomorrow morning when we might be starting?
8 o'clock. And as I told everybody else, you weren't back at that point. If you're going to want to have lunch tomorrow, make sure you bring a bag lunch or something like that, because the first thing I'm going to have the jury do when they come in is order lunch. When the lunch gets here, we'll take a half an hour break, and that's when we'll all eat, including the jury, and then we get right back to work. All right? Speaking of updates, have you heard anything more on our other trial?
Yes, the email I received that I relayed, which was generally that council wanted that status check tomorrow morning.
But nothing more than that? Okay. Well, that status check, that's a good time to bring that up. That can be in front of me, but my entire morning docket is going to be in front of Judge Rowe, but then have Mr. Feingold come down and join you here for a quick status check.
I think he was requesting Zoom, you might recall, Judge. Sorry. I guess he could also appear via telephone if that's more convenient. I'll ask him.
Yeah, would you please? And then, and I don't know, maybe it's something that you two can discuss, because Steph will be down there, pointing the wrong way. Steph will be down there in Judge Rowe's courtroom anyway, so maybe that's something you all can work out down there. I don't know.
I could have Ms. Cassis cover that hearing also. If you're
Okay. Yeah, sure. Thanks. Are we ready? Okay, let's bring them in.
Jury entering.
All right, everyone, take your seats. Thank you for your punctuality, ladies and gentlemen. What was it you wanted to do before this witness comes in? You want to do something else in front of the jury?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Sorry, thanks for the reminder.
Sure.
There was a diagram that had several pages. It was referenced to throughout the testimony.
Diagram of a car, right?
Diagram of a car.
Okay.
Relating to the Cadillac. It was placed into evidence at the time as 13. However, there was already a set of photographs that are already states 13. So this is being renumbered 14. So this is just the reference to the diagram
Okay.
for the Cadillac.
Thank you. All right, so that's being renumbered to States Exhibit 14. Got it. Okay, and the next witness is?
State calls CSM Brandt.
All right, and she's on her way up.
Bronson, I'm sorry. Whew. Long day.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
All right, CSI Brunson, will you please say and spell both your first and last name for the record?
Sure. My first name is Danielle. That's Danielle. My last name is Bronson. That's Bronson.
Okay, that answers that question. Bronson, not Brunson. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
You may inquire, Miss Edwards.
Thank you. Ms. Bronson, what do you do for a living?
I am a crime scene manager.
And how is that different from other crime scene investigators that the jury might see?
I manage a group of crime scene investigators. I also still do some of the crime scene work. However, I'm more at an administrative position.
So you're supervising, but you also assist.
Correct.
I want to take you back to April of 2021. How long had you been with the department up until that point?
Up until that point, I was there for about 16, going in my 17th year.
And all of that time as crime scene or doing crime scene work?
Yes.
When there is a scene like this, one that involves several different places, what is the general thing that happens? One person goes to all places, or how do you divide that supervisory role so that everybody gets to where they need to be?
Well, it generally depends on how many investigators are working at that time. At that time, I believe we only had 2 investigators working and myself. So myself and CSI Brandt went to one of the crime scenes where the decedent was located. And then once I realized that there was another scene to go to, I then asked another CSI, that would be CSI Ali, to go to that particular scene.
All right. Did there come a point that you assisted CSI Brandt with demarcating or doing a diagram of the Cadillac in this case that was at the original place where you went?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that a part and parcel of the search of that vehicle?
Yes, it was.
And what exactly were you doing the diagram for? What was the purpose?
Just another set of notes. It was already like a computer-generated picture of a vehicle that matched best to the Cadillac vehicle. It had 4 doors. It was just an easier way of doing notes rather than literally handwriting everything.
And so as the jury goes through States 14, can you tell us what they will see? And if I could approach the witness.
You may.
Thank you.
I won't have you describe it up there. I'll do that so that the jury can see each item. But just generally, what defects are you marking down on the vehicle?
Pretty much CSI Brandt is the one searching the vehicle. I'm on the outside assisting her with the written documentation so that we're not cross-contaminating. Also, there were numerous defects within this vehicle, so it was just a more efficient way of doing it. She would tell me where the defect was located, and then I would note it on this particular diagram. It's of the driver's side, the passenger side, both exterior and interior, and then again, that was noted on the particular diagram or picture. You'll see markings such as D1E. The D refers to defect. Obviously, I give it a particular number, and then if it's E, that means it's exterior. If it's given an I, that means the defect was interior.
Do you also mark on the diagrams whether or not the view of the vehicle and the markings that are there are an exterior and interior separately from those E's and I's?
Yes. Also, the vehicle description is also marked on each of the pages, such as the tag, the VIN number, the type of car, as well as if the location of the defect isn't self-explanatory just by looking at the diagram, then there's also a written description on that particular page.
So will we see your handwritten notes as well of where the defects were?
Yes.
May I retrieve the item, Judge?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Yeah, you may.
Starting with the first page of the diagrams, could you tell us what area of the vehicle is drawn here and whether or not there were defects on this area, if you recall?
This is the exterior driver's side of the vehicle. I believe there were some within the driver front window in the exterior. I don't think you can see it just because it's a photocopy of the particular diagram, so it's difficult to see. I think there were 4 defects.
You saw the diagram just now. You're able to see them with your natural eye. Is that correct?
I can't see those defects on the window, no, but other than that, I can see the handwriting.
Sorry, let me make sure my question is clear. When you look at the actual page, not here on the screen, can you actually see the little markings on there indicating the defects?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the jury will be able to see that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you indicated that they were on one area of the vehicle exactly.
Correct.
What area?
This area would be the driver front window.
Okay. And do you recall there being 4 defects in the driver's side of that vehicle?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Moving now to page 2. What area of the vehicle are we looking at?
This is a top view of the Cadillac.
And the defect that's demarcated here is where exactly?
I believe it is on the rear windshield on the passenger side.
So for reference purposes, is this the general area that you're referring to that would have your marking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Page 3 of States 14. What area of the vehicle?
This is the exterior passenger side.
Okay, and there are clearly a lot of marks here. Are all of those marks indicative of a defect from a gunshot penetrating this vehicle?
It's a defect. I can't tell you for certain that it was made by a firearm. Through my training and experience, it appears as it is, but again, we just document them as defects. They're a hole in the vehicle.
Okay. Let's start with the tire. What tire was this?
That was the passenger front tire?
Okay. And was that deflated?
Yes, it was.
And you indicate that by saying flat here?
Yes, ma'am.
What about the light towards the front passenger side?
There was a defect. It was broken.
And then several defects on the door of the passenger front?
Yes, ma'am.
And then also, of course, the window of the passenger front?
Yes, ma'am.
And you also are indicating several other areas along the side of the wheelbase, is that correct?
Correct.
And then also the frame of the rear of the passenger side door.
Yes, that would be the C pillar. Yes.
Okay. And again, you indicate these are all exterior.
Correct.
Okay. Page 4. Is this what you mean by notes? We can see, obviously, there's more than just the demarcations now and more sentences and words.
Correct.
Okay. And for instance, can you tell us what area of the vehicle this is such that we can understand generally what the notes mean?
This is the interior of the driver's side.
And I know I asked you whether or not you did anything besides the E and I's to indicate interior and exterior. Is this that general area where you indicate what part of the vehicle this is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And were there defects to the interior of the vehicle?
Yes, there were.
And this is on the driver's side?
Yes.
Were there defects on the seat as it appears to be on this diagram?
Yes.
And then several on the interior door?
Correct.
Okay. So wherever we see something demarcated, that's exactly where it was seen, and you indicated it here.
Yes, a written explanation is also written there just in case it wasn't. For the interior of the vehicle, it's very hard to tell where exactly the defect is, so that's why each has their written description of where it's located.
Okay. So let me select one for identification. D36I, I indicating the interior here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And within rubber stole, what does that mean?
Seal?
Oh, it's seal. Okay. Rubber seal of compartment door around driver. What does that mean, door?
Around the driver door. The seal, the rubber seal that you see there on the compartment, it's probably easier to look if you see it in the photograph.
So is that just sort of the sort of cushion between metal in the door frame itself?
Yeah, that rubber, yes.
Okay, all right. And those are sort of your handwritten notes about the areas, and they will be fairly self-explanatory for the rest of them, right?
Correct.
All right, page 5. What area of the vehicle is this one?
We are still on the interior driver's side.
Okay, and are there still defects to be noted?
Yes, ma'am.
And again, your notes?
Yes, this time it was difficult to put it on the actual vehicle diagram. So again, they were more written in this particular instance.
Did you note any defects to the windshield of the vehicle?
I would have to refer to the diagrams, but I believe so.
Okay, if you could go ahead and actually, can I refresh your recollection with CSI Brandt's report? I think that might assist you. May I approach the witness, Judge?
You may.
Doesn't appear to, no.
Okay. So none of these demarcations are indicating the front windshield, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So these are all other interiors of the vehicle then in this particular page, which I believe was 4 or 5.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Moving now to the last page. Sort of similar question, where in the vehicle are we looking at?
This is the interior passenger side.
Okay. And again, are there defects? And if so, where?
Again, I'd have to read exactly what the location is. It looks like they're the ones that are labeled on the vehicle are in the passenger rear compartment, and then again, numerous other ones with an actual explanation of where it's located.
Okay. And again, aside from the single defect that you noted to the back windshield, no other windshield, not the front or the back, besides that one in the back.
Again, not that I recall, but I would have to look at the diagrams.
Please feel free to look at the notes.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So that no, ma'am, is a response to what exactly?
No other defect other than that one that was located in the rear windshield and none in the front windshield.
Okay. So none in the front, just one in the rear.
Correct.
All right. Thank you so much. I will tender the witness,
All
Judge.
right, very well. Any cross?
Thank you.
Okay.
Fortunately, good evening. How you doing?
Good, sir. How you doing?
Okay, so was there any blood on the outside of this vehicle?
I don't recall.
Anything in your notes will help you refresh your memory?
In my notes, no. In my report, no.
Were you there when CSI Brandt was checking for blood on the outside of the vehicle?
I was there when she searched the vehicle, and we saw it on scene. I know there was blood inside of the vehicle. I don't recall if there was blood on the outside.
How about the diagram on states number 14? Do you have it on there if there was blood on the outside?
I think that was mostly for the defects and if we've recovered any metal fragments or whatnot. I could look at them if you'd like me to. I don't recall.
All right, well, how about your notes? You have a lot of notes beside the diagram also, don't you?
I do. I don't have the notes in front of me, though. I do not.
Show them to you. So you did this diagram, right? Would it possibly be on here if there was blood-like substance on the outside?
There might be. I can check, but that was again mostly for the defects. The
Would that refresh the memory possibly?
That's not in there.
It wouldn't be there?
It's not in there, no, because if I may, I did the notes. However, the description of the vehicle and everything inside or outside is going to be in CSI Brandt's report.
Okay, so
Okay.
she's the one we should ask if there was blood on the outside of the car?
Yes, unless you want me to check my notes, but yeah, it would be in her report if there were or weren't. Okay.
Okay, thanks. So you didn't collect any blood, you were just there to take notes for defects, is what you were saying?
Yes, I was helping her with a description of the vehicle.
Okay. What, do you remember the VIN, the VIN number was partially obscured on this Cadillac?
I do on the front windshield, yes.
What was obscuring it, do you know?
Some type of piece of paper. I'm not 100% sure what type.
You know how it got there?
I do not.
Were you able to remove it, or you just left it there?
I didn't remove it, no.
Have you noted that in your notes?
That it was obscured in the notes? Yes.
Okay. You remember there was do you remember any blood in the back seat of the car?
I don't recall, sir.
You have notes that there was blood-like substance on the passenger front headrest, driver's front headrest. There was a defect. Blood-like substance on the driver's seat bottom and back of headrest. Remember that?
As you're reading it to me, yes.
All right. And I'll show you notes. I don't see anything in here about blood on the passenger seat. Would you like to see your notes?
No, I believe you. If it wasn't documented, then I believe there was not blood back there.
You have also, there was a bottle of H2O in the middle of the rear seats.
Yes, sir. As you're reading it to me. Again, I don't have a copy of my notes in front of me, so.
I can show them to you if you
Yeah, I trust you.
And you do hundreds of cases, so it's hard to remember every detail, right?
Well, again, yes, and since I was assisting Brandt, all that information, all that detail is going to be in her report, not in mine.
You remember a cell phone in the door pocket?
I remember there was a cell phone in the door pocket.
You don't have any knowledge that there's any blood on there or ballistic pieces of metal from a gunshot, do you?
I know it had some type of impact mark, but other than that, I do not.
You didn't see any hair or skin or fiber, possibly?
Not that I recall, no.
When you were at the scene over in West Palm, you said you went there, on 40th and Broadway.
Yes, sir.
Would you agree the weather was pretty cool that night?
Yes.
Breezy?
If I recall, I'm not sure. I have to check the notes exactly what I documented it as.
All right, we'll stick with cool. You agree with that?
Sure.
And when you were at, I know you're the manager, but was CSI Brand basically in charge of her scene, or were you supervising her?
Both. I was acting as her assistant if she needed me in a supervisory capacity, and that means if I needed to liaison between the detectives or the other personnel on scene, ask them a question, get her some information. That was my job, in addition to assisting her with written documentation.
Y'all never checked, well, meaning crime scene or any of the police officers, checked the roofs of the buildings, adjacent buildings to this parking lot, did you?
Myself and CSI Brandt did not. If Road Patrol did, I'm not sure. You'd have to ask them.
You don't have any knowledge of that, do you?
I do not.
Remember the fenced-in areas that were connected to the building of the auto shop?
Yes, sir.
And you remember a food truck behind the fence on one of the areas? If I'm facing the building, to my left would be a fenced area and a food truck.
I do recall, yes.
Were you go behind that fence and look for any type of evidentiary value evidence?
I did not.
You don't know if there was a gun thrown back there or?
I do not. None of that information was brought to my attention. Again, still free-flowing. Information is always coming forward, but that was not information that was relayed to me.
And the other fenced-in area, did anyone search that to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
You guys have drones that can go on roofs, so no one has to climb. You can actually get a drone to check if anything of evidentiary value may have been thrown on a roof, right?
The crime scene unit doesn't, but the sheriff's office does. Again, that's not my call to make.
Nobody gave you guys information about the first responding officer saying he saw two silhouettes back in the area by the fence area and they were not trying to stop him?
I didn't have that knowledge, no.
If you did, would you possibly have looked back in that area?
Possibly.
Did you find out later on in the day that there was a gun found about 100 feet from the actual shooting scene behind somebody's backyard?
I don't recall. I never did respond to the initial scene where the firearms evidence or the casings were located.
You never went there?
I never went there, no.
Is it customary in your business? Obviously, you want to get everything while the crime scene tapes up, right?
Correct.
If you don't, things could possibly disappear.
Correct, and it can be extended if need be while even on scene. Sure. And we can hold a scene if we need to as well.
For days if you need to, right?
If we need to, yes.
Would you also go back a day or two later and say, like a detective calls you and say, you know what, I really missed this. I need you to go back and check something out. Could you then go back to, let's say, 40th and Broadway and take a look around to see if you missed something?
We can, yes, as long as there's no type of like expectation of privacy or you have to get a search warrant or something. Yeah, yes, we can.
Right. If you have to get a search warrant, the police officers can apply for one, right?
Correct.
Okay. No one asked you to do that in this case, right?
No, they did not.
No. After you left that scene on 40th and Broadway, to this day, Detective Annalyn or any of her supervisors never asked you to go back and look for anything?
They did not.
And no one asked anybody in your department, crime scene, to go look the path of travel where this car went to see if anything may have been thrown out of evidentiary value out of the car?
No, sir.
And if they did, you could have done that, right, if somebody asked you to do that?
Correct.
You also have a dive team if somebody throws something in water?
Yes, sir.
And you guys do that on a routine basis. You send divers in, right, to check for weapons that may have been thrown in water?
It can happen. Again, that's not my call. That would be the Detective Bureau.
The decedent in the black Cadillac on 40th and Broadway, you obviously had an opportunity to view him, right?
Correct.
Would you agree that the decedent's hand was consistent, or he may have had a gun in it prior to his death based on his right hand's position?
I mean, he may have been holding something, who knows what. I know that first responders did respond, and they did put those emergency patches, or they're called leads, on him. So again, I don't know what his actual position was, prior to or after they moved him or put those leads on him.
My question to you, would you agree that the decedent's hand may have had a gun in it prior to his death based on the way his hand was positioned?
I agree, may have had.
I'm going to allow it.
I agree, may have had something in it. It could have been a gun, it could have been a phone. It could have been something else in his hand. I'm not sure.
You may.
Thank you, sir.
Remember giving a deposition back on September 29th, 2021 in this case?
I do?
I gave you a copy of it.
Yes, sir.
Have you had a chance to read it before today?
I have not.
All right, if you can direct your attention to page 13, read the whole page and even page 14. If you could read 13 and 14 to yourself, please.
13 and 14?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, page 14, I'm sorry. 14.
14? Okay.
I'm not sure. I may be mistaken. It's getting late. Right, directed to the. Did you say anything about the question about the gun in that page?
Yes. It said, let's see.
On page 13 or 14?
On page 14, you asked me something, maybe something known as the death grip. I think that's what you were asking me. Also on page 13, you asked me if I had seen somebody's hand frozen who shot themselves. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I don't have a copy of your statement. That's the only one I have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. It's my fault.
Would you like me just to read it? Is that easier for you? Or what? It's
Did you do that or am I
It's-
kind of get it back, Rich?
Why don't you get it back?
okay.
Let's do it
Sure.
properly.
Let me have it back if I can.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Nope, no problem.
Yeah, I was actually telling you the right page. I had the wrong one. Did you read 13 as well?
Briefly.
All right. So you remember telling me back when you gave the deposition that you've seen people's hands in similar positions like that?
I have, yes. You were asking about suicides.
And I said, looking at the photographs of the decedent, does his hand, I know you're not a medical examiner, but does his hand look like he was possibly in a position of holding a weapon prior to his death? And you said, possibly. I mean, possibly. Remember saying that?
Possibly, yes.
All right. Is it consistent with some of the suicides you've seen before, the way his hand looks? The decedent in this case. Yeah, I've seen that. A hand similar to that on suicide cases. Yes. Remember making those statements?
Yes.
So you agree it was consistent, right?
Well, I didn't write that it was consistent. I documented the position of the hand as I viewed it. Could have been holding something like a gun? It possibly could have. Could have been holding something else? Possibly as well.
Do you see anything evidence in the car that you examined,
I did not.
him holding something that was consistent to make his fingers that way?
I didn't see him holding anything. I'm sorry, maybe I'm not understanding the question.
Found anything in the car consistent with him possibly holding prior to his death that would have possibly made his hand that way, if you know?
No, there was no firearm located in the vehicle.
Anything else in the car that could have done that, in your opinion?
Again, maybe a phone, maybe there was, I don't exactly remember everything that was found in the car. Again, I'd have to refer to either my notes or CSI Brandt's report.
The lead detective never brought this to your attention, these type of questions, to ask you your opinion, did she?
No.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right, any redirect? Okay.
I'm trying to understand some of the questions you were asked on cross. You answered in the negative. Did you actually go into the interior of the vehicle on the day that you went to the scene on April 7th of 2021? Did you enter the vehicle?
We just briefly looked at the passenger front compartment once the decedent was moved. We did have consent to enter the vehicle on that day. Some of the items, for instance, like metal fragments were removed because we were afraid to lose them. Other than that, it was sealed up on scene and then searched at that later time.
And was your role at that time assisting, or were you looking for things like blood-like substances and other things?
I was just assisting. If I saw blood on the outside, I would have documented it. But again, I was just there as her assist in documenting the vehicle.
So then
As I saw
CSI
it.
Brandt would be the appropriate person to talk about with specific items on or inside that vehicle.
Yes, again, I assisted her with documenting it. All that information is going to be in her report.
How is that separate and apart from the diagram and documenting the defects? Was that done a different day?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Right.
when you were documenting the diagram, what was going on there? What was your role?
I misspoke. It actually was the same day, but later that evening. The crime scene was very early in the morning, and we started the vehicle around 10 o'clock at night. Again, my role was to assist her. I was outside of the vehicle as she was inside of it, telling me where the defects were located, and that's how I documented them on those diagrams that you saw.
And so if she saw blood on the rear passenger seat or anywhere else, you wouldn't be able to say, or you would?
I don't recall offhand. Again, I'm just writing what she's detailing me because we couldn't be in the car at the same time. That wasn't the roles that we were playing. I was there to assist her. If she needed me to look at something, I did, but I can't recall just off the top of my head right now.
And your role, just to be clear, was documenting defects.
Sustained.
Was it anything else?
Sustained.
Judge, I can't ask if she did anything else.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Was it? I thought you said, was it anything else?
No, Judge, I was just
My mistake. I'm so sorry. You may ask that question.
I was documenting, yes, the defects, and if she observed anything else inside the vehicle. Those were part of my notes of the interior of the vehicle.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, CS Manager Bronson. You watch your step getting down. Stay safe. Ladies and gentlemen, okay. You don't have to stand back up. Just stay close to a microphone.
Was there any physical evidence in that vehicle that suggested that a firearm was in there? Any casings, anything indicating a firearm was inside the vehicle?
No casings were located inside the vehicle. I do know metal fragments were removed from some of the defects. Other than that, that's
And what are fragments?
all I recall.
So we understand.
Part of a projectile, the part of that's expelled from a cartridge casing that comes out of a fire.
Does that suggest a firearm was inside the vehicle?
It doesn't suggest one was in the vehicle. It suggests that there was a bullet inside the vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Watch your step. Stay safe. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for today. Now, let me fill you in on where we are. We're going to, I'm going to ask you to come back again tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Thankfully, Judge Rowe has graciously decided to assist me by taking my morning docket, so we should be able to get started right about 8 o'clock. The first thing you're going to do when you get in at 8 o'clock tomorrow, after you've signed in downstairs, come upstairs. Deputy Lubinsky is going to give you a menu. From that menu, you will select your lunch that the county is paying for. You're not paying for it. Bottom line is, he'll order the lunch that you order. He'll order for you from whomever it is, Jimmy John's, right? And then whenever that lunch gets here, is when we will take our lunch break. You'll go back there and eat your lunch in the jury room. We will eat our bag lunches out here or elsewhere. As soon as you all are finished, we're going to take about a half an hour for lunch. When you're done with lunch, then we'll start right up again tomorrow, so we don't waste a lot of time walking back and forth and wondering where we're going to eat, that sort of thing. Because I fully expect that the state's case is going to be concluded tomorrow, hopefully by the time we have that lunch. But we will see. No? All right. Well, we'll figure that out later after you all are out of my voice range. All right. I guess that's it. Please keep and obey keep in mind and obey the 4 cardinal rules. If you happen to see one of us out there, duck and we'll duck you. Please, please, please keep an open mind. You still haven't heard it all. You've heard a ton, but you haven't heard it all yet. No research and no discussion, even amongst yourselves. Leave your pads, please, and we'll see you tomorrow. Remember to go downstairs first, sign up, then come upstairs and be ready to order your lunch. See you tomorrow. Stay safe. Is it absolutely necessary that we hear from that officer? Or is it going to be redundant?
It's not gonna be redundant.
It is? Oh, it's not. All right, fine.
But Judge, we'll pound out tonight, and, you know, if we can not call him, then we won't. But CSI Ali is necessary, Judge.
I've heard her name enough to know that, yes, she's probably necessary.
We have Detective Farron
Okay?
and Detective Ott, Agent McMichael, Detective Cunningham,
You still haven't even mentioned the lead detective.
Vanderline,
And that's the lead detective, right?
and then Jimmy Palmer, who is the firearms expert.
At the rate at which we're going, we can't even finish this on Friday, folks. How am I going to be able to continue on with other trials? I know Miss Edwards is on one. That's clearly not going to start before sometime next week. How are we going to finish this trial?
We're moving as fast as we can. I don't know, Judge. I mean, I honestly, I did not think it was gonna take us 4 days to get jury, and then cross-examination, direct and cross-examination was lengthy, and Your Honor, they have their witnesses, and
I know. I haven't even talked about their witnesses yet. We know we have at least one, but it sounds like 3 or 4.
because we're not calling any, there are 2 witnesses that we have, next, eliminated from calling, because we're not calling witnesses who are going to basically get up there and,
Reiterate things others, yeah, exactly. That's what I,
no, Your Honor, we're not doing them.
all right.
Move to. So I'm doing, CSI Ali in the morning, Judge,
Okay,
and I will be quick. I'm not gonna get there, I'll get right to it.
good.
The only, out of the witnesses that I named, Your Honor, the ones that will probably be with Detective Vanderline is gonna be probably lengthy, only because she was lead detective,
Right,
and, Detective Cunningham, who, he collected, he did the phone extractions, Your Honor.
okay.
So that's just a matter of, you know.
Are there any stipulations that you can reach with respect to extractions and things of that nature?
I think, Judge, I would love to reach a stipulation.
Okay.
I know that there is a phone, which was Sebastian's phone, Your Honor,
Yeah,
that they had for a while, that Detective Vanderline collected. Obviously, it was found in that pack, in that backpack. And well, Judge, this is.
I didn't hear that, so
Sorry, Judge.
that's okay. Maybe I wasn't supposed to. Okay,
This is the issue with the phone, Judge, is that, I think what has already come out is that this was not a thorough investigation.
right, and that's obviously the crux of the defense here.
Yes, Your Honor. And so as it relates to the phone, particularly as it relates to Sebastian's phone, that phone, Your Honor, was given to Detective Cunningham. He had it for a while. He was not able to crack it. Judge, it could take 22, 23 years to crack a phone. You don't know the passcode. It's standard to know the passcode.
Okay,
And so there was testimony alluding to, you know, not basically being able to get information from some of these phones.
okay,
And Judge, it's not that we did not try to get information from some of these phones. It's
Right.
that we did, but we weren't able to.
okay.
And so, you know, I don't even know if we can reach a stipulation on that, Judge.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it seems like you ought to be able to.
Well, that's fine, but there was also Darrell Rudolph's phone that was never examined at all.
Okay,
There was Kyle Robinson's phone that was.
all right, well, so that's a different issue, though.
And Darrell Rudolph's phone, Judge, there's a reason why it was not, and Detective Vanderline will
Okay,
testify as to why his phone was not.
all right,
Let me just note, the only thing they want to call Detective Farron is to say they tried to break into his phone, they could not, or download it, whatever, it didn't work.
No, fairness, not out.
Cunningham, right,
We can stipulate to that.
okay.
That's the only thing they want it for.
Well, that saves a few minutes.
Judge Ray, them explain what they did to, otherwise, all they have here is the information is provided and no context about anything. So respectfully, I'm not sure how you accept a stipulation under those conditions.
All right, well, tomorrow is day 10 of this trial. I'm going to put everybody on notice, and you all can spread the word. You better start taking a look at the recent 4th DCA opinions concerning jury selection and time restraints put on lawyers for jury selection, because I'm going to start doing that. There is no reason we should be this far, only this far along at this point in a trial. We should be further along than this, a lot further along.
I agree, Judge, and I apologize that we aren't. We're moving as fast as we can. Had 3 witnesses out there. CSI Ali was out there. Officer Palaio was out there, and since I knew we were stopping, I just told them to be back here at 7:45 in the morning.
All right.
But Judge, we have witnesses here.
Well, it's not just the state's fault, okay? I mean, cross-examination has been rather lengthy on several of these witnesses and somewhat redundant, quite frankly, in the questioning. So, there's plenty of responsibility to be shared for this. I'm not faulting just the state. But the bottom line is all of us should be farther along on this trial than we are. And I've got a lot of trials backed up, and another murder trial that's clearly not going to get started on Friday like it was supposed to.
Judge, I'll see what the situation as Detective Farron. I mean, he collected the night out DVR or recording device, and really all we're calling him for is to because the issue has been raised about the cameras outside, and as Your Honor knows, because you sat through the stand your ground hearing, Your Honor,
Yeah.
that particular device was on a schedule where it was not recording every single day. Detective Farron will testify, as he did. They're not gonna- well, we're not gonna-
You crossed the witness on that very issue, claiming that there was a recording that was somehow damaged by the furniture touching the item.
All right. Okay. Well, look, do what you can. I'm not going to twist anybody's arm with respect to that. But if you can reach stipulations and avoid unnecessary delay as a result of calling witnesses that really don't have to testify and don't have to be subject to cross-examination, then you should do it. All right. See, yes. Off the record, sure. Well, there is going to be a record, actually, because there's nobody in recording to turn that thing off. Well, I mean, frankly, the two of you can come back if you want. All right.
Thank you.
Let them come up here.
Judge, I'll bring him up this way.
Or that way, yeah, go with Deputy Lubinsky. Thank you.
Are we in recess, Judge? Are we in recess?
Yeah. In fact, we're adjourned. Is what we are.